Hello everybody, I'm Dr. Duke, and this is another installment of Right Makes Might. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit more about transgender bathrooms. It seems that we can't keep our potty business out of the news, that every government hack has got his or her or its opinion about how we should transform our bathrooms and transgender them. You all know that very recently the city of Charlotte, North Carolina, the city council passed a resolution by a 7-4 count that mandated that transgender people should be allowed to enter the bathrooms and shower rooms, locker rooms, that they identify with, not that corresponds to their biological sex. This, of course, has caused international news. The problem with what Charlotte did is that Charlotte had no legal authority to make that decision. The North Carolina state constitution, which supersedes what Charlotte can and can't do, for 180 years, the North Carolina Constitution has ceded responsibility for regulating business in these ways to the state government, not to the cities. So the big brouhaha on behalf of Charlotte was, Charlotte knew that by pushing this, that by voting this through, they were going to force a crisis where there needed to be none. The state of North Carolina simply went back and established its prerogatives over and above Charlotte's. And this, of course, has made international news. The media, predictably, has sided with Charlotte. The governor now, the legislature, who were just legally doing what they needed to do to protect the state's prerogatives, are now deemed transphobes and haters and anti-queer and lesbian, and you know the drill there. Really interesting what happened. The Charlotte Observer, the biggest newspaper in Charlotte, which is one of the 20 biggest cities in the United States, by the way, Charlotte. It's bigger than you think. The Charlotte Observer, on May 13th, they published an editorial entitled "Keeping the Fear Out of Bathrooms," in which they very condescendingly take the side of the city of Charlotte. They also argue that girls just need to get over this, that the idea that women and girls will be frightened by threatened by male genitalia in the bathroom or the shower room, that they just need to grow out of this. In fact, here's a direct quote from the absolutely condescending Charlotte Observer editorial. Yes, quote, "Yes, the thought of male genitalia in girls' locker rooms, and vice versa, might be distressing to some. But the battle for equality has always been in part about overcoming discomfort, with blacks sharing facilities, with gays sharing marriage, then realizing that it was not nearly so awful as some people had imagined." So here we have the incredibly ironic situation where the Charlotte Observer is squawking that girls should just grow up and not be bothered by encountering male genitalia in their showers, in an editorial that is dedicated to the proposition that it is inhumane to force men with penises, men who think they are women, to have to encounter male genitalia in men's showers rooms. Do they no longer teach logical fallacies, internal inconsistencies, or the recognition of straw man arguments in journalism school? And wouldn't it just be much easier, safer, and less impactful to simply tell these men that think they're women that using the bathrooms of their biological sex is not nearly so awful as they think? Why in the world do we have to incommode thousands, hundreds of thousands of girls who don't want men and boys in their bathrooms, when we could simply make that same argument the Charlotte Observer makes for girls, make it to the transgenders? Look, guys, if you have a penis but think you're a woman, it's really not all that awful to have to shower with other men, right? But rather than target a very small group who are causing all this trouble, we have to make hundreds of thousands of girls completely change how they go about things. And where, by the way, is feminism in all of this? I mean, look, I'm as happy as the next guy when feminists keep their mouths shut. There's a kind of musical silence when academic feminists are remaining quiet. But it's just going to beg the question, where are they? I mean, I thought it was feminism that argued for decades that women have the right to define who sees their bodies and in what way they see them. That women have a right to protect their intimate spaces from the obtrusive and invasive view of men, the gaze of the male. What happened to that? How did that go away in 0.0 seconds, right? I mean, all across the country, women's colleges, redoubtably women's colleges, all female colleges, are already admitting men who say they're women, right? This is a complete breakdown of what it means to be female. Feminism has just made itself obsolete by refusing to defend the rights of women to have separate spaces and going along with this nonsense. Take crazy Mount Holyoke College, which is an all-women's college in Massachusetts. Every year for the last 10 or so years, they had their annual Vagina Monologues Day, where they did readings of the Vagina Monologues in a very feminist way, where they put on the play, The Vagina Monologues. Well, just this year, Mount Holyoke College has decided not to do the Vagina Monologues anymore, and you want to know why? Because the Vagina Monologues discriminate against women who don't have vaginas. That was their argument. In the world we live in, kids, that would be men. Women without vaginas are men. But because the feminists at Mount Holyoke College have given into the transgenderism, the idea that you can have a play celebrating simply women's issues is discriminatory. This is how absolutely absurd it's gotten. And if you want one more, the uber-liberal Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, a couple of days ago introduced legislation into the Canadian Parliament that says any distasteful, hateful, or critical speech about transgender people or even about transgender ideologies is enough to be labeled a hate crime. The Prime Minister of Canada wants to punish people who criticize transgenderism with 2 years in federal prison. 2 years. Let that sink in the next time you think about who the real bullies and fascists are in this country. Thanks for listening.
This is Right Makes Might with Dr. Duke.